Welcome to Velocity City, where we discuss speed, skill, and sheer determination on the world's most prestigious circuits. Today, we delve into the gripping story of the Aston Martin team and their quest for glory in the midst of a pulsating season. With Mercedes rediscovering their form and the battle for second place intensifying, the stakes have never been higher. Buckle up, for this is Formula One at its electrifying best. Let's dive into it. Suddenly, Mercedes has found the perfect car mid-season. Since Monaco, Lewis Hamilton has been driving like his former self. While Red Bull sit comfortably on the top this season, Alonso has to drive out of his teeth for Aston Martin to finish second in the Constructors' Championship. Even that won't be enough unless Lance Stroll starts to drive like he deserves to sit in an Aston Martin. Aston Martin said this after the Spanish GP. 2 cars into the points on a challenging but fruitful afternoon at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, where Lance came home ahead of teammate Fernando. 2 cars in the points last season would have been a cause for celebration, especially if they finished 6th and 7th, but the results feel strange this year. Alonso should be competing for podium spots, while Lance likely placed where he should have. Alonso started 9th and Stroll 6th on the grid. Lando Norris's first turn error and Pierre Gasly's difficulty keeping up with the race pace helped Stroll maintain his pace, while moving up in the rankings was expected for Sergio Perez. But the Aston Martin team's spines would have chilled at George Russell's stunning surge from 12th to 3rd. Russell would not have been able to finish in the points from that position on the grid before the upgrade to the W14. But something has undoubtedly changed. Aston Martin could not snag any available spots at the head of the grid. Carlos Sainz excelled in P2, while Lando Norris displayed his talent by earning P3. Aston Martin should have finished in both spots if the season's first 6 races are any indication, but they weren't competitive. Let's talk a little about the Constructors' Championship. Aston Martin was sitting on the 2nd spot pre-Spanish GP. They would have had a comfortable lead if Lance pulled his weight. To be honest, Lance is the biggest problem for Aston Martin this season. Aston Martin has 5 podium finishes this season thanks to the one-man show of Alonso, while Lance is simply horrible this season. Although Lance's P6 finish doesn't look too awful, he was over a mile behind Hamilton. When Alonso started his first lap in Q1 in Barcelona, he ran wide onto the gravel at the penultimate turn, which is when his issues began. He bounced back to finish the session in the 12th place before taking 8th in Q2. After the team spent the first half of the session working on the vehicle, it was in better shape for Q3. Alonso thought he still had a chance to qualify on the first row, but a mistake on the last lap caused him to place 9th. During the breaks between the sessions, the crew was able to fix the flaw progressively, but Alonso had the added difficulty of not knowing exactly how the vehicle would perform each time he went out. Still, the race would have gone more smoothly, right? Then what prevented Alonso from riding faster? Was it simply that those in front of them were better, or was there another issue at hand? We are aware that Aston Martin performs best on slower paced circuits. Therefore, Spain was always going to be a challenging place for Aston Martin. So should they be worried about Mercedes? Well, yeah, absolutely. This is what Lance Stroll said about the Mercedes car in an interview. Mercedes had a rocket ship. I'm not sure where they found that pace. I was expecting us to be the strongest car after Red Bull. I expected that after all the races this year. We just didn't have it. We had a lot of degradation and were struggling with our pace compared to Merc, Ferrari. Red Bull is in another league. We just didn't have the upper hand. Aston Martin had a brand new rear, front and beam wings for Barcelona, but it is highly concerning that they did not appear to benefit the squad. Aston Martin lost half a second per lap to Red Bull, while Mercedes rediscovered form to overtake them in the Constructors' Championship. When you bring upgrades, you would expect them to perform better. When asked if the newly improved components are assisting him, Fernando Alonso responded, "They do. They do, absolutely. There is not a new part that we put in the car that is not helping the performance. That's something that has always been the case with the team from Bahrain. So I'm happy with the upgrade, and let's see tomorrow when everyone goes to full power where we are." The weather was considerably different on Sunday compared to Friday, and maybe the track temperature fluctuations were significant enough to disrupt the best setup window for the Aston Martin. Nevertheless, the performance decline from Friday to Sunday was unexpected. Alonso was far less pleased with his modified AMR23 after the race. We didn't have the pace, so that's the biggest problem. It was not that we were unlucky or on different strategies or anything like that. I think we were slow compared to the Mercedes, slow on the soft, slow on the hard, and we just concentrated on the Alpines, AlphaTauris, and kept up the pace with the Ferraris. In the end, I think we outscored the Ferraris this weekend because they only scored with Carlos, and we lost points with the Mercedes, but they have done a better job this weekend. So let's try the next one. The Constructors' Championship has already established its battle lines. Aston Martin and Mercedes will compete for second place. Being behind them in speed, as Alonso claims, is alarming. When asked if Aston Martin's upgrades are track-specific or the upgrades brought by its competitors, Alonso acknowledged that both the track and the competitors' teams contributed to Aston Martin's upgrades. I think the track was a little bit not the best for us. From FP1, we were on a completely different setup from what we predicted, so we had to work a lot during the weekend to be happy with the car, which was kind of new for us. And then the upgrades from other people. I think maybe they didn't show their full potential in Monaco's and Miami's street circuits. So here we saw today that maybe they are a little stronger. But I'm not worried. There are going to be better weekends and worse weekends, and we'll have our opportunity in Canada. Alonso did state that he anticipates witnessing a very distinct race in Canada. He said they would engage Red Bull, but maintained that Mercedes has continued to concern him. They are fast. They are a concern for us. They have been all year long. They've been very consistent drivers as well. His remarks about consistent drivers couldn't have been more pertinent. With a decent vehicle, Hamilton will always do well. That's the foundation of his career, and George Russell demonstrated his ability to work wonders by overtaking Sergio Perez on his way from 12th to 3rd. Aston Martin doesn't have a driver of such quality in the garage. Everyone is aware of Alonso. After all, he is a two-time world champion and is maybe in the greatest shape of his career. Aston Martin does, however, have a big problem with Lance Stroll. Although Alonso's actions in the final laps of the Spanish GP cast new light on the team's dynamics. Around lap 60, Alonso swiftly moved up on his colleague, and although being unmistakably the faster of the two drivers, he claimed over the team radio that he was zero risk to Lance and was only doing to block the cars behind him. Alonso could have easily passed his colleague if he had chosen to, but instead he coasted behind him. Alonso has previously stated that he will assist Lance in taking over as the team's primary driver for the foreseeable future. It is ridiculous to tell your squad that you won't fight a teammate when you easily could and are competing for a driver's championship spot. I'm sure that Alonso is relishing the opportunity to drive a competitive vehicle once more, but for Lance it must be embarrassing, and for the team, Lance will lose them the second place in the Constructors. Despite being the perfect team player all weekend, Alonso did have some criticism for his team. We still need to speed things up. I think Ferrari is already 2 flaws into this season. Mercedes was obviously a completely new car in Monaco and more upgrades here. Red Bull, Baku package and another one here, so we understand that we're not in that position yet. Mercedes' performance in Spain should worry Aston Martin, but even more worrisome is how rapidly Mercedes altered their vehicle. The Aston Martin should be receiving significant enhancements soon. So there you have it. As the season progresses, we see a clear picture of who will be the second on the podium. Yeah, we know that Max will win the championship. The race is for the second position. Moreover, who do you think will come in second for the Constructors' Championship? Tell us in the comments section below.